Get Together on the 9th of April. My name is Anna, I'm PR and Communications Manager, and I'm joined by Linda, our Digital Marketing Manager. Linda is here to talk about simplifying things in your life, and today we'll be discussing why we sleep. Just as a quick reminder before we start, you can find all the summaries we talk about and all the upcoming topics for our get-togethers on our journal. So, Linda, hi, welcome. And first question, how did you sleep last night?
Hi, Anna. Thanks for having me. Actually, I slept really well. Yeah, I think enough and didn't really wake up in between, not so much at least that I would really remember. The interesting thing is I wasn't something that you would now call quarantine last night. So having a drink with and chatting via video with friends. And this morning I had coffee, so probably not what sleep experts would recommend, but I think we'll get to that later and what that means to doing these things from time to time or more often.
When we were talking about the topic for the session, I actually had one kind of initial question. Why do we even need books called How to Sleep? I mean, isn't that kind of obvious?
Yes, maybe. It's definitely something that is very natural and we do it all the time. I mean, we spend something like a third of our life sleeping. So this shouldn't be anything complicated or something that we would need to learn. But I mean, it's also a bit interesting that it doesn't really come so natural to all of us. A lot of people have problems with sleeping, and then I think when you start reading or listening to interesting presentations or documentations on sleep, there is so much to learn from sleep research that it would be a pity to miss out on that, really. I mean, there's super interesting things to learn and the effects that sleep have on all kind of aspects of your life. Just to mention maybe two examples. One would be learning and memory. It's so important how well you sleep and how it determines that how well you can learn or how well you can memorize things. And maybe what you wouldn't think of initially, but there have been studies that show it's not just that, or it's actually before and after the learning that you have to sleep well. If you don't got a good night's sleep before you have to learn something important, you won't have the same capability to remember these things. And the same happens for after learning. So the night after you learn something, that time is needed for the brain to really store these facts or whatever you have learned in a certain place. And if you didn't get good quality sleep, that doesn't happen in the same way. And maybe a second thing would be our immune system. It's really powerful how much sleep affects our immune system. And I mean, we all know when we feel a little bit sick, then we think like, maybe I just need one night of a good sleep and then everything feels better again. And there's actually studies that Matt Walker, whose book we wanted to discuss a bit more during today's conversation, he mentions that in his TED Talk, which is also really excellent. It's called Sleep is Your Superpower. And he mentions there these natural killer cells that we have in our body who are really fundamental for how our immune system works. And what he says, when you they did experiments with people where they get just 4 hours of sleep in one night instead of the normal like 7 to 9 hours, and then the capacity of these killer cells went down by 70% the next day, so 70, which is really a lot. And I mean, now in these times with the COVID-19 pandemic and we don't want to get infected, this is a really, really powerful aspect to know about and to consider, that really sleeping enough makes your body much more resistant in terms of any infections or illnesses.
I think that's a really interesting point, that it's such a basic human function. You know, we all do it, but at the same time, it's kind of a rare commodity, and it's kind of a luxury to be able to sleep well and to sleep for long, for the recommended 7 to 9 hours, for example. But what do you think about that contradiction? Sleep has suddenly seemingly become a really hot topic, and we're all talking about, on the one hand, our need to sleep, and on the other hand, how busy we are all of the time.
Yeah, yes. I mean, it's really an interesting field to think about what is happening there. The way we started saying, like, I mean, sleep should just be a very normal thing to us, or it's a basic human function. And suddenly we have to think about this, and I think it has to do with how our lives changed in the last few decades, maybe, that the way we work, that we don't often have these fixed schedules, that we use much more technologies at home that don't always help to sleep well. There's much more lights, not just in our apartments, but also in the cities where we live. And all of this affects sleeping. So it's really maybe not as natural as it used to be. And the other thing is this super interesting fact of that somehow sleep is more and more considered a luxury or like a status symbol. And yeah, I don't really know what to think about that, to be honest. I mean, it's not like people say you have to make this a priority. It's very important that you sleep enough. And then other people might say, yeah, of course, but I'm working several jobs just to earn what we need to live and have food and everything. So how am I supposed to do that? Or you have a newborn baby. There's no way you can sleep 7 to 9 hours, and definitely not uninterrupted. And then on the other side, you have even nannies that richer people have, that get up at night and take care of the baby so that the parents get their sleep. And this is interesting how this becomes really somehow a luxury, while everything we know says, I mean, this shouldn't really be happening, right? It's still a very basic and human thing that should be open to everyone.
I mean, that's another word that you mentioned there is priorities. And you also mentioned the quarantini. So, I mean, we know that certain things can affect our sleep quality, caffeine, alcohol, looking at our phones late at night. But you also mentioned having babies in the house. And for me, sometimes late at night is the only time I have to scroll through social media without any interruptions. And I kind of need that time as well. So do you think it's also a question of learning to prioritize sleep over other things in our life for our own benefit?
I think yes. I mean, I don't think that it's, that you should be super, super strict with yourself and no social media ever after 9 p.m. or something. I mean, it's also about having a balance and knowing where to put your focus on. But I think there's definitely something in that we have to learn, or maybe rather unlearn those habits that are disturbing our sleep, and not only the length of our sleep, but also really the sleep quality. So you mentioned alcohol, caffeine, and of course, like our phones, screen time, and definitely it helps to keep them low, as low as you can, and still be happy with the level of social interaction you have and in what ways. But then I think it's important that you really keep your bedroom a quiet and dark space where you just sleep. And yeah, it's really also, and like this place should be there for you to get to sleep quietly. And there's also something that is sometimes neglected, this time before you sleep. There is some time that you need to wind down from a busy day. And this is also something that maybe people need to practice or create some habits around that. And one tip that I don't know where I found it. It is a few years ago, but it said you should have an alarm clock like 30 to 60 minutes before you want to go to sleep, so that you know, now is the time to get ready. Now I have to, I don't know, do the dishes or read a little bit or do some stretching or listen to a bit of music, go to the bathroom, do all of the things you wanted to do before going to sleep, and then you're actually ready by the time you would want to sleep, and by a time that also gives you like for example, 8 hours until the next morning when you have to get up. And that is something I found really interesting, because it's very easy, it's very simple. I mean, also a lot of sleep experts recommend that you have very regular schedules for sleeping and waking hours. So actually you should always go to bed around the same time. So if that's like 11 o'clock, then at 10 o'clock you can already prepare for that. And I did this a few years ago, and it really helped me in a time when I lived alone and there was no one else saying, oh, should we go to bed now? And I was the only one who had to take that responsibility, but was watching movies or scrolling through social media, I don't know what, and then it always got late. And when I had my alarm clock, I really started to get ready when it was time to get ready.
Stick to a habit. I actually find that interesting as well. We were just talking about mini habits. We just had our marketing team reading club this afternoon. And we were talking about the book Mini Habits by Stephen Guise. And we were also talking about mini habits that all of us in the team wanted to develop for whatever goal that we want to achieve personally. And I was also thinking, you know, in light of the topic that we have today, there are probably a lot of mini habits that we could cultivate that don't take a lot of effort, that don't take a lot of readjustment of our usual habits, but that would really support a better approach, or, you know, a healthier approach to our sleep hygiene. And I really love the idea of this alarm clock. We actually just got a question on Facebook as well. Are there any tips for getting to sleep quicker and sleeping deeper and more soundly? So I think people are really also looking for things that they can do, that they can integrate in their daily lives that would support this aim. Did you come across any advice that you think might be worth passing on?
I think the key ones are probably this regularity, that you sleep and wake up at the same time, that you keep your bedroom to mainly sleeping and not get distracted from other things there. What I also found interesting, what Matt Walker mentions in his book, and I think also in the TED Talk, is the temperature. And this should really be quite cool. So it's like 65 degrees Fahrenheit or 18 degrees Celsius. That is an ideal temperature to sleep. And I think often we think like it is more comfortable to have a warmer temperature, but actually when it is a bit colder, it is easier for the body to fall asleep. I don't really know all of the background why this happens, but it seems to be something that is that works like this. Yeah. So maybe that. Yes. Yeah. One other thing that I had noticed, maybe I would add that. A little trick that is definitely worth trying when you just try to get less light in the evening. So if you have lights that you can dim, then try that. And already an hour or even a bit more before you want to go to sleep, take care that you have less lights in your apartment and dimmed lights, and that will create that melatonin that is needed to make you feel sleepy. And then I think the preparation is really important. It's not just this, sleep is not just happening when you are in bed and when you are sleeping. There's really a lot that happens already before, that when you have much light there, much activity, also the social media, of course, And it's not just these blue light filters that suppress the melatonin production. It's really also maybe the topics that you view then that keep you more awake than if you did something that was more quiet in this last hour before you go to sleep. That really, really affects the quality of sleep a lot.
Yeah, those blue light filters seem to be everywhere at the moment. I keep seeing ads on all sorts of social media channels for these blue light glasses. And I guess at the moment as well, the screen time really adds up. We're all working from home. We're still using our phones and everything. So that adds up to many hours in the day. But what about those nights where insomnia, it just happens? You can't sleep. How should you handle that? Did Matt Walker have any advice on that specific topic? Is it, for example, better to get up or to just lie there and keep trying?
Actually, he's very clear about this, that when you have problems with sleeping for like 20, 30 minutes, you should get up again, go into another room, do something else, but something quiet. I mean, like reading or listening to a podcast, or I don't know, do some meditation maybe or something. And then when you feel tired again, then you can go back to the bedroom. But it's really important that you don't associate your bedroom and the bed as a place where you don't sleep. And that happens a lot when you have these phases of insomnia or wake up often and cannot fall asleep again, that your mind remembers that and it just associates that this is a place where I have problems with sleeping. And you should really try to avoid that and get rid of that.
That kind of creates a habit in itself.
Yes, it's also more an unconscious habit probably, but it really happens, and it then your mind is in a mode that says, no, this is not the place to sleep now. This is the place where you try to sleep.
We probably all know those nights where it just doesn't happen for whatever reason. Linda, we have kids that are more or less the same age, so I can empathize with that as well, when you mentioned about having babies at home. But how do you function the next day? I think it's very easy to get into a kind of circle or a kind of unproductive habit of then using caffeine or whatever throughout the day to get back up to speed. And then, of course, you won't be able to fall asleep again that evening until probably later. And now at the moment as well, perhaps we're seeing our daily rhythms or our daily routines being really affected by the changes that we kind of have to deal with. So is there any advice on how to handle getting through the day when, for example, you're completely exhausted?
I mean, what Matt Walker mentions in his book is that really when you haven't slept enough, there are a lot of effects. For example, that you don't drive as well as you would otherwise. You don't have the same level of concentration and reaction times. So there's a lot more heart attacks happening when you don't have enough sleep. So I think really if you get the chance after a bad night's sleep, then you should take it easy, because there's really a lot of bad things that could happen because you're not in your normal state of your body and mind. So if there's any chance for that, I would really recommend that you take it a bit slower than usually. Other than that, I think whatever you have to do, there's probably a chance for doing like little nice things for yourself. Maybe if you drink a fresh juice or eat some fruit, get a little bit of fresh air. Maybe you can go for a short walk. Maybe it's just going out with your coffee on the balcony for a few minutes. So really any small things that do something for your health, like the fresh air, the vitamins, things like that, can be helpful in such a moment. And then the other thing, I mean, if you have a chance to get a little nap schedule throughout your day, then why not? And you definitely missed some sleep the last night, which you could catch up quickly. So I think that is something recommendable to do. What Walker says somewhere is that if you already regularly struggle with sleep at night, then it's not a good thing to have daytime naps, because it really takes away from that sleep time you have by doing that already throughout the day. Then maybe it will be even harder the next night to fall asleep.
So maybe resort to power naps as an exception and don't make them the rule. Is that the kind of the balance that maybe we should be aiming for on the rare occasion, hopefully?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, or really just doing something that works for you. I mean, if you know you can always fall asleep easy at night, but it's just not enough sleep that you get, for example, because of the kids or something, or because anything else that you also just like to do later at night, then a nap is a good idea, I think. If you realize that it also affects your night's sleep, then it's probably a better idea to stop and try something else. But I mean, as with so many things, we really have to see a bit what works for us, try different things, stop trying them when they don't work, and then try to find out what helps us.
And you mentioned at the moment, maybe we kind of need to be a bit kinder to ourselves, be a bit more understanding of the situation that we're all in, and that maybe things aren't easy at the moment. Is it even realistic to expect us to be able to cultivate good sleep habits at the moment? We're kind of suffering through a time of increased stress, anxiety. We have a lot on our mind, and kind of hearing about the effects that too little sleep can have on your body. Well, that's an additional pressure. So is it realistic to be able to expect good sleep habits to evolve at the moment, or is that something we should be postponing for now?
I think knowing or learning about the adverse effects really should motivate you to try and sleep as good as you can in any situation. Because if you don't, it really affects you in these hard times even more. So I think that is definitely a recommendation, that you try to do things, but maybe take it a bit slower. Try a little thing. If you feel like one of the tips is really hard for you to achieve, then try another, and maybe that helps you already quite a lot. So I wouldn't be too hard on that side, but I would really try to do something for a better sleep, because it really there are really so many statistics that show that many people are not having the sleep, both in quantity and quality, that they should have. I think Matt Walker mentioned sometimes somewhere the different age groups and what is the recommended sleeping time for them. So a newborn would probably be around 18, 20 hours, and then it goes down. But even like the over 60, over 70-year-old people, they still have a recommended sleeping time of 7 to 8 hours. So pretty much everyone who sleeps less than that should try to get some more sleep and really work on that. And of course, what you mentioned, it shouldn't be an additional level of stress in a stressful time. You already have more challenges to deal with, and this shouldn't be a stressful thing, but really, like, do a little bit of research, maybe just listen to the podcast or read one of the summaries that we'll recommend and also show here in the comments. And then you get some ideas and you can try out what works for you. And maybe a little note, something I saw in an interview with Matt Walker is that someone asked him, but either myself or someone else really just needs these 4 or 5 hours of sleep, but they function well, they don't need much more sleep than that. Are they really fine, or should I be worried about that person? And then he said, I mean, we all know this bell curve of the likelihood or probability, and most people should sleep these 7 to 9 hours. Of course, there are a few people who need much more than that, and there are also very few people who need much less than that. But if you look at the statistics, then it's very likely that you're not one of those. There are more people who say, I could be someone who just needs less sleep than that, but there's not so many people who can claim that. So maybe it's a good thing.
There were some quite famous people who claimed to need very little sleep, and for some reason I only remember, I think Margaret Thatcher was one of these people who claimed 4 hours of sleep is all she needs to function. So statistically, that's unlikely to be the case for most of us. We got one more question on Facebook, which I find quite interesting, that kind of about how to support sleep as well. Taking melatonin, for example, or other sleep aids is actually what's the word in English? Counterproductive. There we go. Counterproductive. Thank you. Are there any suggestions for sleep aids, herbs or other remedies that could actually be beneficial, or should we be trying to do it without any kind of medication or support?
Yeah, to be honest, I don't know exactly about specific herbs or something. What I know about is like really sleep pills, and I think also the melatonin things, is they don't really work as naturally as the body would otherwise. And often it's more like not a real kind of sleep, but more a sedating effect. So a little bit like alcohol would do. So it makes you tired. Maybe it's easier to fall asleep, but then the quality of sleep is not the same. So, and all of these activities that happen during these REM phases and so on, they wouldn't happen in the same way if you need this, if you take these sleep aids. For herbs, I can definitely imagine that there are some really helpful ingredients that we can use for a tea or something. But I would also need to do some research on that.
It's probably part of a nice going to bed ritual as opposed to really a solution for issues with your sleep. So I guess we'll file melatonin along with quarantinis as not being the ideal prerequisites for getting a good night's sleep. So we've almost run out of time in our allotted half hour. I would just like to end with one question. If there's one thing that all of us could do today, this evening, to get a better night's sleep, what would you recommend that we all try?
Maybe set that alarm, try it out. I think that was really one of the most fascinating things I tried out in terms of having better sleep, and make it 45 minutes or something, and then think about what are the things that you want to do then. And from that, you can build your own rituals, your habits, things that you would like to do that help you fall asleep easier. But maybe the starting point is really having that alarm clock.
We did get one question still on Facebook that I would just very quickly like to address, because this is interesting as well. As you get older, do you think sleep becomes more of an issue? And if yes, why? I know that you touched on how different age groups maybe have different sleep requirements, but is there something more that we can say about how age might affect issues with sleep?
There's definitely scientific research about that, and I know this happens with increasing age. The quantity of sleep often decreases, often also the quality, that is not so deep anymore. To be honest, I don't really know the exact reasons for that, but sleep is very closely related to aging factors. So, for example, Alzheimer patients and the memory loss they have, if they sleep more and better, these effects can sometimes even be reversed a bit. So I think especially then, or actually in all age groups, it is important to have the best sleep that you can get. And I mean, there's always phases that make it harder, like right now, or the small kids, or maybe just a different phase in life where you feel like what happened before is not, or what helped you before is not helping anymore. But really take this seriously. Try to get the best sleep that you can.
And set that alarm clock. That's a cool tip. I'm going to try that tonight. So thank you very much, Linda. Thank you to all our viewers, our listeners. Just a quick reminder, you can find updates about our get-togethers, as well as all the recordings of these sessions on our journal page, and of course, links to the summaries that we've been discussing. So please stay safe, see you soon, and thank you. Bye.
Bye, thank you.
Extraordinary challenges require extraordinary responses from thought leaders, company executives, and employees. As the coronavirus pandemic unfolds and businesses scramble to adapt to escalating containment efforts, getAbstract is here to help organizations navigate this crisis wisely and professionally. For over 20 years, we've been committed to providing relevant knowledge from reliable sources to help people make better decisions in their personal and professional lives. In line with our mission to empower decision makers with relevant knowledge from trusted sources, we are proud to offer businesses free access to our full library until May 18. Embark on a no-strings-attached knowledge journey with getAbstract. Sign up